Hello and welcome back. For this video, we're going to show you how to write equations in slope-intercept form just by using points without looking at the graph. There is a PDF available, so you can print that out and follow along if you'd like. First thing we need to do is remember that slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b, where m is the actual slope, it's the coefficient of x, and the plus b is the y-intercept of the graph. Now keep in mind that m is really the ratio of the rise over the run, and rise over run is really calculated as y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And the x and the y values just come from 2 points. So we're going to start with something really easy. This example here, we already give you the m, which is the slope, -3/5, and the y value, or the b value, which is the y-intercept, of -4. This -4 actually comes from a point 0, -4. So to plug this into mx plus b form, all we really got to do is write down the equation like this. And okay, this 3/5, -3/5 goes in place of m, and this -4 goes in place of b. So I'm going to write it as y equals -3/5 x. Instead of putting plus b, I'm going to put -4. And that's our equation, y equals -3/5 x minus 4. If we were to graph it, we would start at -4 on the y, and then we would go down 3 and to the right 5 to find the next point. Here's our first example where we just give you 2 points. One thing we want to point out here is since the x value is 0, that means that this value here is the y-intercept. So in order to graph, or in order to make our equations, we need 2 things. We need slope, and we need the y-intercept, which is the b value. Well, we already got the b value. The b value is 3. All we got to do is calculate the slope. Okay, so our slope is going to be change in y, so I'm going to do the 5 minus 3, so 5 minus 3 first, over, I started with the 5, so it's going to be 2 minus 0, 2 minus 0, and that ends up giving us a positive 2 over 2, which is equal to 1. So my slope is actually 1. So y equals mx plus b is the format I want to write it in. My m of 1 goes here, and my b of 3 goes here, and then I can write my equation. Y equals 1x, that's a positive 3, so plus 3. If you wanted to, you could write it as y equals just x plus 3. We don't really need the coefficient of 1 out in front. We're going to try one more here, in which we give you the y-intercept. So I still need to calculate the m. I still need to find out the b. Well, this is a 0 for x, which means this is the y-intercept, so -5. All I got to do is calculate my slope now, and I'm going to do 3 minus -5. 3 minus -5. Remember, that's change in y over change in x, and that's going to be over -4 minus 0. -4 minus 0. Go ahead and calculate that. 3 minus -5 is going to give you 8. And -4 minus 0 is going to leave you with -4. Well, 8 over -4 is -2 over 1, or I could just call it -2. So go back and write our equation, y equals mx plus b. So our -5 is our b value, goes here, and our -2 is our slope, goes there, and our final equation is y equals -2x minus 5. For this example here, we did not give you the b value, the y-intercept. So we're going to have to calculate both the slope and the y-intercept. When you're not given the b value, the y-intercept, you have to calculate the slope first. You have to calculate this one first. So go ahead and set up your ratio. So let's do the first one, 4 minus -1. Let me make sure I get that right. 4 minus negative 1, and negative 2 minus 3, negative 2 minus 3, and 4 minus negative 1 is 5, and negative 2 minus 3 is negative 5, and negative 5 over negative 5 is negative 1, so my slope is negative 1. Now, in order to calculate, let me move this out of the way, in order to calculate the b value, you need to go ahead and substitute some values in. Y equals mx plus b. We need to calculate this value right here. We happen to know what m is. M is negative 1. What we need to put in this problem in order to calculate b is a value for x and a value for y. And it turns out that we have two values up here. I have an x and a y here, and I have an x and a y here. And it doesn't really matter which one you choose. I'm going to choose the first one. So the x value is negative 2, goes in place of this x, and the y value is 4. Now instead of having 3 variables, I only have one variable left to solve for, which is my b value. Now all I got to do is use a little bit of algebra and solve for b. So 4 is equal to negative 1 times negative 2, which is 2, plus b. Subtract 2 from both sides, and my b value ends up equaling 2. Final step, write my equation. Y equals, my m was negative 1 x, and my b value was positive 2 plus 2, and this can be our final equation. Of course, we don't need the 1 out in front of the x, but we do need the negative sign. I'm going to try a couple more here. Be careful on this one. A lot of people have a tendency of thinking that this is the y-intercept because there's a 0 in the coordinates. However, the 0 here is on the y, which actually makes this the x-intercept. And our formula, or our equation, only deals with the y-intercept. So that's not the b value. So I still have to calculate both the m and the b value. You've got to calculate them both. Let's go ahead and calculate the m first. So m is going to equal, let's do 5 minus 0 over negative 6 minus 1. And that ends up giving us 5 over negative 7. So my slope is negative 5/7. And now I got to go ahead and solve for my b value. So y equals mx plus b. I'm going to substitute in place of m, negative 5/7. I've got to put a value in for x and y and solve for b. Now, let me give you a suggestion here. Since there's a 0 on this coordinate, I would go ahead and choose that coordinate to substitute x and y. However, I'm going to show you how to clear the fractions anyway. So I'm going to choose the first one instead, but we should get the same answer either way because both of these points will be on the same line, so they will have the same y-intercept, which is our b value. So I'm going to go ahead and put a negative 6 here and a positive 5 there. If I were choosing the other point, I would have a 1 here and a 0 there, which would be a little bit easier to calculate. But I'm going to proceed with the 5 and the 6 instead. So 5 is equal to, remember this is over 1, negative times negative is a positive. 6 times 5 is 30 over 7 times 1 is 7 plus b. Now I could go ahead and just deal with the fraction, but I'm going to clear the fraction by multiplying everything by 7. So 7 times 5 is 35. 7 times 30 over 7. Oh, I forgot my x. Nope, there is no x. Leaves me with 30, and then 7 times my b gives me 7b. Now all I got to do is solve for b. So subtract 30 from both sides, so 5 is equal to 7b, and then divide by 7 on both sides, so b equals 5/7. So 5/7. It's not a pretty y-intercept, but it is the correct one. All I got to do now is write my equation. So y equals, my slope is negative 5/7. X plus 5/7 is my y-intercept or b value. And this ends up being my equation from those 2 points. Last one. I still need an m and I need a b value. So let's go ahead and calculate m. M is going to equal, I'm going to do 5 minus negative 3 over negative 12 minus negative 7. And that's going to give me 8 over negative 5, so it's negative 8/5. So my slope is negative 8/5. And in order to solve for the b value, I take my negative 8/5 and I input an x and a y, either the first point or the second point, doesn't really matter which. To make the numbers a little bit easier to work with, I'm going to choose the first point. So my negative 7 goes here. I can put that over 1, and my negative 3 goes here, because this is x, this is y, this is x, this is y. So negative 3 is going to equal, negative times a negative is a positive, 8 times 7, 56 over 5, plus b. Now to make the calculations easier, I'm going to eliminate the 5 by multiplying everything by 5, make everything 5 times bigger, so I don't have to work with that fraction. So I have negative 15 equals 56 plus 5b. Now all I got to do now is subtract 56 from both sides. So I end up with 5b. Negative 15 minus 56 equals negative 71. And then divide by 5 on both sides. So b ends up equaling negative 71 over 5. Negative 71 over 5. It's not a pretty intercept, but it is the correct one. So y will equal negative 8/5 x minus 71 over 5.